I think that all people have a right to be armed because firstly, disarmament is the first step to government tyranny, and the basic premises of the United States and the being free and freedom itself is based on the fact that the government is weak and the people are stronger than the government. And because of that premises, that basic fact that we should base freedom on, everyone deserves a right to have their own firearm, and everyone deserves a right to not have that right be taken away from them. Secondly, everyone also has a right to not like the government does not have a right to take away your firearms from you because that's a form of tyranny, and also the government does not have a right to put your firearms on record and to register your firearms on record because once you put your firearms on record, there's no point to having a firearm to defend yourself from government tyranny.
I personally believe gun or all sorts of those kind of weapons should be controlled very tightly. And although people believe it's necessary for their own protection, but there's still a possibility of how it can be used, how it can be misused, and potentially harm others. So it is very necessary to treat these weapons in a delicate way and in a safe way.
Number one, I believe that automated weapons that can have higher damage and threaten the population should be tightly controlled. You should have a background check. Not only innocent, as I would say that innocent means no criminal record. I also think that people who are allowed to own guns should also have a clean medical history and don't have any influence with any potential gangs or terrorist groups.
And I think with the second question, I think it's not the idea of allowing someone to have a gun. It's more just the process through which someone is allowed to get a gun. I think that governments should be more strict with it, like I said earlier, and make sure to do background checks on like people who are trying to get guns and make sure that they're not just handing out guns to people, because currently in the U.S. that is sort of the problem. Like people can just randomly go to Target and get a gun right now. So that's the main problem. It's not allowing your citizens to have a gun. It's controlling controlling how people can get guns.
Firstly, in order to prevent these issues, firstly, it's a myth that countries with more gun control. It's a myth that countries with more gun control actually suffer from less violence. That's a myth. According to statistics in Australia, for example, when the government decided to buy back all the guns, the murder rates and crime rates, such as knife crimes, etc., actually increased by 3%. And it's the same in many other countries, such as Sweden. The rape rates are actually extremely high when people don't have the right to have firearms or the right to defend themselves. In order to prevent these mass shootings, firstly, by taking more background checks, I guess. But every gun owner already takes background checks. So it's really hard to prevent these issues unless you want to increase resources and spending on police. So once you increase the security of people, you're increasing their supply, and you're also increasing your own, without taking away your own rights to have your own weapons. And once you increase the security and policing of the people and fund them more, there's going to be less shooting automatically less shootings.
I think hiring more police doesn't mean that we will get a safer circumstances. Rather, if you consider from an economic situation, I think it's also decreasing the opportunity cost. As if you spend more money on hiring police, I think you get less opportunity to spend the money on education or medical care. So I think it doesn't necessarily mean that by hiring more police can provide a safer circumstances for people.
If no one has a gun in the first place, there's not a real reason for people to need to own a gun for personal protection, I believe. I think it's different, when you live on a farm as opposed to when you're in a city and you own a lot of guns. So I think that the government should regulate it, like for the Las Vegas shooting, for example, the man who was involved in the shooting purchased a lot of his guns in the same year. So there should definitely be some sort of quota system where can only purchase one gun, or you can only, nobody needs like 30 guns. So there should definitely be a cap on that. And it should also involve, a mental health check and stuff like that.
Question 2. So for the governments that do allow civilians to purchase guns, I think they have to come up with and strictly impose regulations on how the guns are sold. Like, they have to be much more careful with background checks, and also I think increased security and police in the country would also help with that. And in regards to that, I think hiring more police doesn't mean that it will help address the problem that people owning gun is dangerous. I think hiring more police and sacrificing gun owners' rights, they're not entirely related, and I think just not having guns in general would be safer for the country. So I think even though you would hire more police, you should still, I would still say that you shouldn't encourage the use of guns in the country. That was like question 3 as well. Okay, question 1. I believe civilians should not have the access to guns, because I just imagine the scene of everyone walking down the street can possibly have a gun in their pocket, and you'll never know when they'll just take it out and shoot you. So I think it imposes it's imperceptible, but it's everywhere, and that kind of risk is really terrifying, and I wouldn't want to live in a country like that.
I believe that police and gun owners' rights are very different. When gun owners gun owner want guns to protect themselves. Police protect the public. I think it's doing both purpose. And I agree, if they want to increase public safety, maybe a better police force, more police. I remember reading an article saying that for Los Angeles, the police to population was in a huge dramatic number. And I believe that for countries such as the United States that have a gun culture, that better equipped, well trained, and more policemen will do great help.
Okay, so with that question, I think it's just someone being really ignorant and stupid, because it's the police's job to you can't just hire more police. There's a lot of issues with that. First of all, you're going to need people who want to be cops, and year by year that's kind of decreasing. But they're I think the person who asked this question was a gun owner themselves, and I think they're just being ignorant to the idea, yes, you may be a sane person who is able to easily get a gun, but others might not be.
I totally agree with this question. We should just hire more police officers. Now, firstly, many people argue that the fact that, we should ban assault weapons. We should ban assault weapons because they can kill people massive rates than non-assault weapons. But the fact is that more people every year die from handguns rather than assault weapons. So that's invalid. And that's one of the main reasons why people want to take away the guns. They're it's gonna cause there's more murders by guns. More people are dying by guns. 32,000 people a year are dying by guns. But that doesn't erase the fact that the murder rates increases once the government decides to buy back the guns. So that's basically my general belief on gun control, and that's why I believe that we should just hire more police officers instead of putting more regulation on guns, because the people won't be able to defend themselves from government tyranny and from other people.
Well, the only way to really prevent mass shootings is to get rid of guns. I feel like it's a pretty simple idea. So if you allow all your civilians to have access to guns, you're going to increase the probability of mass shootings. It's just going to happen, because even if guns are illegal, I mean, it's true, people could still get guns legally, but it's going to be much more difficult. And if you are planning on, attacking a large group of people, you're going to be more likely to do it if you have an easy access to guns, as opposed to if you had to get through all of this, go through a black market and get guns. If there were no guns in the first place, you wouldn't have to hire more police. So I think that, it's just an unnecessary thing. It would be a lot safer and also a lot more efficient to just get rid of guns than to hire more police officers.
I believe that that the government should just maybe make the background check more harsh and vet them better. But then, however, mass shooting, as I say, it's not gonna be the first time, it's not gonna be the last time. You can just only hope for the best and decrease the frequency of it.